So hi everyone, my name is Stefan Boyter and I'm the Director of Rainmaker Marketing, and a big welcome to our short summarized version of our first property market report for 2024, where we zone into the Western Cape and into Somerset West and Stellenbosch in particular. So I think a big thank you to our market research department who have collated all the different information and comes off the back of a significant amount of work that they've done within the Western Cape historically. And the whole objective of this particular video is to give you a highlights package on what you can expect within the report. And the report unpacks a huge amount of detail that underpins what I'll discuss in terms of detailed stats, trend forecast, and really unpacking year by year within those specific areas. I really hope that you'll all find a huge amount of value in it, answer a lot of questions, and really underpin the fundamentals, which are so key to any property market, and look forward to you sharing it with anyone who you think will find relevance in it. We are, as a business, unashamedly very passionate about property and very passionate about what drives certain areas. And we've always said that there are pockets of excellence throughout the country that will continue to thrive, but the Western Cape is naturally a very good news story, in the same way as the case in North Coast that we unpacked in our report at the end of last year. And really to go into a bit more on that, we start off in the report by painting the macro picture on the Western Cape, and then we zone in specifically into those areas of Stellenbosch and Somerset West. And why we've chosen those areas is because they link well geographically and really underpinned by a lot of really strong elements in terms of a combination between retirement, between normal residential, between student housing, which makes up a huge component of the transfers in the area like Stellenbosch, for example, in the last period, and how those all interlink to create really good trajectory over a period of time, which we will unpack. When we go into the report, we start off by looking at the Western Cape holistically, as I mentioned, and the question a lot of people ask is semigration. So those of you who don't know what semigration is, it is the stat around people who are moving from one city to another. And the Western Cape undoubtedly has the market share of that. So in the last 12 months, 46% of the people who moved from one city to another moved to the Western Cape, which is great news for the Western Cape. And obviously then naturally one will be asking, what does that do for population and for infrastructure and so forth, which we also unpack in our report. But that stat is 49% up from the 31% of people who moved into the Western Cape in 2020, which shows a huge trajectory, but it's also underpinned by common fundamentals, which are service delivery, it is well-run municipalities, it's in amenities, and its approach to sustainability in terms of both water and power, which are becoming equally as important as we go. But it is quite noticeable that, or important, that 120 billion in infrastructure has been allocated to the Western Cape, or budget towards infrastructure developments in the next 10 years. And that is largely towards how does one deal with factors such as population growth. So it's projected in the next 10 years, the Western Cape will become the most populated city in South Africa with a population of 5 million, and that 135,000 new jobs will be created in the next 3 years. Great news for any business and for a thriving economy as a whole. And then we know that tourism is generally a huge metric when it comes to area growth. So it's interesting to note that in the month of December 2023 was the highest volume of two-way international travelers ever recorded in Cape Town's history. We know we've come off the back of COVID, and we've come off the back of lots of different strains in the tourism market. But to have seen that not only has the market bounced back, but it has gone to new levels, where in the month of December there were 317,000 two-way international travelers that went into Cape Town. If one looks at boarding plans approved and boarding plans completed, it's an important number because it shows inefficiencies in terms of plan approval and delivery, and a key catalyst in terms of unlocking the property market. So in the last 12 months, 2 out of every 5 plans were completed happened in the Western Cape, which is good news for everyone in the construction industry and everyone who is having homes that need to be delivered. And then across the board, in a 12-month period, all properties under the value of 20 million, there was an average price increase across the Western Cape of 10%. So then if we look Somerset West and Stellenbosch, what we've done is a Somerset West forms one large area in terms of deeds offer stats, but we have split our Somerset West from Macassar. And Macassar just from a geographic perspective, and you'll see it on the report, is the area that is on the Cape Town side of the N2 as you're driving into Somerset West. And why we split it out is that there are some pretty significant estates such as the Satari and the Huntsman, which form part of Macassar, but do have different breakdowns when it comes to buyer profile and price points. And therefore we have found it quite important to find differentiation, but obviously everything is bundled. 93 new families are moving into that area every month, which is a very good indication in terms of what's happening in terms of people moving from within the Western Cape, but also people who are emigrating, and driven by amenities, facilities, schooling, proximity to work, and all the different other factors that come with it. The average household income is another thing we unpack. We look at this trend over a period of years across the different regions, and you'll see a nice trajectory in terms of average household income within Macassar, Somerset West and Stellenbosch. Stellenbosch, as an example, since November 21 has seen an average household income increase of 31%, which paints a picture in itself. And then we unpack the buyer age with the same trajectory in terms of monitoring it over time. But it is interesting that both Somerset West and Stellenbosch have seen that close to 50% of the buyers on average are over the age of 50. Very, very different to a lot of other areas around the country, which is where the buying profile is driven largely by younger buyers, first-time buyers, younger families. And it's not to say that demographic doesn't apply in these areas, but the fact that close to 50 are over the age of 50 is actually driven quite heavily by the fact that there is a lot of retirement offerings, but there are also a huge amount of people who are buying on behalf of their kids. As I mentioned, in terms of Stellenbosch, an example where 70% of the recent transfers are in that student housing space, which is very driven by the demand, proximity to university and so forth. As we did in our last report, we've also analysed the value of properties inside and outside of estates. It's no secret that estates generally do create more value based on community, based on infrastructure, facilities and security, and all those factors mean that the property value and the property values achieved and the capital appreciation within those is generally higher. So we've analysed those outside of estates versus in estates, and just the highlight or stand-out point would be that in Somerset West, the price of sectional title properties within estates have exceeded those outside of estates by 151%, which is an indication of the quality of the estates that are on offer in those areas. If one unpacks property transactions in the way that we have done within the report, it's interesting to know Somerset West has achieved the highest volume and value of sales transactions, where Stellenbosch has achieved the highest price per square meter of the two regions. But collectively, is 7.6 billion rands worth of transfers that happened that happened in 2023 within Somerset West and Stellenbosch combined, which if one takes the fact that that is also higher than the 12 months before that, and the fact that it's happened despite various different macro factors, but also the interest rates that have continued to rise, it's a really, really positive indication for the market. And we'll touch on interest rates in a second, but if one sees those coming down, one could expect that 2024 will be significantly up from 2023 volumes. So Stellenbosch achieved a 54% average price per square meter premium to Somerset West. In the year of 2023, Stellenbosch averaged 35,000 rand a square meter, which is 6% up from the previous year. But it's also important to note that those stats are based on properties that transferred in the course of the year and not necessarily developments that have launched off plan and haven't yet been completed. So an example in Stellenbosch would be a development such as One Stellenbosch, which is a student housing development, which has achieved in some cases in excess of 60,000 rand a square meter in some of their smaller units, just based on the demand for the student housing market, both for investors and for parents investing on behalf of kids, and the volume that makes up of the market. And those stats will then be reflected once those properties are completed and transferred, probably towards the end of the year. In the report at the end, we highlight and summarize the key factors, but we also go into projections on what we think the market's going to do within those specific areas in the course of the next 12 months. And those are factors that will be driven by market trends, both locally and internationally, as well as within a more of a sort of macro environment, what this immigration will continue to do, the sentiment of the market as a whole, the positive impacts or potential impacts of interest rate fluctuations, We believe that we've reached an interest rate spike or threshold, and we do believe that we're going to see interest rates coming down in the third quarter of 2024, and hopefully we can see up to a percentage, which is a speculation, but obviously based on various different inputs. And we do think that that's going to stimulate the market further and will be really, really positive for a huge amount of elements. But we've also mentioned and unpacked the Cape Winelands International Airport, which was announced last year and expected to be completed in 2027, which will have a significant impact in terms of the volume of incoming and outgoing travelers into the Western Cape. So that is our Quarter 1 2024 market research report in a nutshell. We hope that you've enjoyed listening to the summary, but also hope that you'll enjoy the detailed report. You can download it on the Rainmaker marketing website, onto our social media platforms too, and please feel free to share it. Share any comments, any questions you may have. We will be releasing our next report in the third quarter of 2024. We'll be focusing on a different region, and look forward to chatting to you then. Thanks very much.